Greetings and welcome to Rocks. This is the Claus and today we are the Atarangi. In this episode we will be talking about 6 different ways to make rock models. Of course we will be using the blender. No, not that one.
G'day!
The first rock type we will talk about is noise generated rocks. For this you use a displacement modifier on your model. You then map the displacement to a texture like the Voronoi or noise texture, and then by changing the scale of the texture or the strength of the modifier, you can change the look of your rock. For more details, check out the last parts of this tutorial here. This is a simple method and I use it often. Speaking of simple, Blender comes with a rock generator. This tutorial by Ryan King will give you some more information on that. I personally don't really like it, but don't let that stop you from using this useful tool. The third way of making rocks is by using geometry nodes. Before we get into this, a quick word from our Barry.
So obviously there are nearly infinite ways of making rocks using geometry nodes, so we picked a very versatile option.
There are quite a few steps for this method, so take a look at this tutorial for the proper information. But what you end up with is a modifier that can be used to draw rocks into the world, or planes that you can scale and extrude, that then automatically turn into rock walls. The third type is low poly rocks. Here we start off with a simple shape and cut off pieces to refine the shape. As explained in this tutorial, we also use a bit of sculpting for the details. The tutorial will also explain to you how to turn a high poly object into a low poly object without losing too much detail. Speaking of sculpting, you can learn more about that using this tutorial by just the basics. It will take you through the workflow of creating a simple model and then detailing it with free rock brushes. With this technique you can make fairly large formations and caves fairly quickly. The fifth method is photo scanning, which can take a lot of time and storage space. More about photo scanning in this tutorial by Peter Friend. The sixth and final method is to not make the rocks at all. Sometimes it's best to not do everything yourself. Maybe you're an architect and you need to put the rocks around your house model. No one will care if you made the rocks or not, there's plenty of both paid and free rock packs around. Pay attention to the usage licenses though these can differ. Now that I have all of these rock models, I'm gonna make a rocky area. When working on a project like this, it's easiest to put all of your rocks into a library file first. This allows you to access your rocks within any other working file. More about them here. So here's the render I made. And here's a still of another one that uses cycles and some different textures. Don't let my lack of skill fool you, the tutorials here are of high quality. Now let's discuss these techniques in our unscripted part of the video. But before we hop into Blender with Barry, I forgot the type actually. You can make rocks using metaballs, which are these weird blob objects that just kind of melt together, and then you can put up an interesting material that gives some texture to it. That's the material I used to the right on the cycles render. So let's get right into the discussion then. So here we are in Blender with our rock painted plane and Barry to ask questions. So let's get right into that.
Yeah, so I actually kind of want to see the Voronoi, if you can show that.
The Voronoi texture or the rock?
The Voronoi texture, if that is possible. And then maybe a bit of explanation on how it decides where it will go on the rock, if you happen to know that.
Yeah, so the way that works is the Voronoi texture is not applied to the rock, it's applied to like a plane in the world.
Yeah,
So we're just scrolling across the texture.
Yeah, and so by moving it, moves on one face and then just wraps around the rock, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, can I go here? Thanks. So this is what the Voronoi texture looks like.
Yeah. So is it just like black and white and then like a gradient between?
Yeah, it's just black and white. It's a grayscale texture.
Yeah. So the coloring that you're getting on the rock, because there's some green in there as well, that's all done after the fact.
Yeah, that's done with this.
with some nodes.
Depending on your texture, you can get pretty much anything you want.
Yeah, and it changes both the shape and the texture on the rock.
Well, it doesn't change the texture on the rock, it changes the displacement, so it's just the shape.
Yeah, the displacement of where it is in the texture.
Yeah. So all of the actual colors and textures and stuff comes from this node tree.
Then I would like to go to the geonode rocks, where you can just draw them, and I would like you to show me some of the drawing.
So this is the draw rock. It comes with a little buoy, as you can see.
Okay.
And the fun thing is when we change the shape of this little buoy, we change the shape of all of the little buoys on the rock.
Right.
This could be any shape. Like this rock could be made out of monkeys. Any shape you input here will work.
So you basically have a master shape that is taking control over the rock that you want, basically. And then by changing your master shape, you are changing the rock that you're looking at.
Yeah. And then we've
for
got this curve here, up here.
Yeah.
And if you select that, you get the option. I need to go out of edit mode first, and then back in. And we can grab this, and then we can draw the rocks.
Draw the rocks, yeah. And those also take the shape based on your white base shape.
Yes. Which again, this base shape can be anything.
Yep. And I guess in a project you could use multiple of these base shapes to have multiple types of rocks.
Yeah. So
and then to finish your render, you'd make your base shape invisible.
So here it's grabbing the base shape, and you could use a collection of base shapes instead of just one base shape as well.
Oh,
so you would grab like an entire collection and put it there instead of just your shape.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
Yeah. And the reason it's not just a bunch of these hovering around and it's like melted together like this is because there's a remesh here that melts it together. So by changing the settings of that, you can change how it melts together.
Yeah, and so basically the remesh is making a bunch of small segments become one big one.
Exactly. For demonstrations, I also have a round buoy.
Oh. And what happens if you were to say grab a point and just
grab a point of what?
Grab a point on your base shape and just pull it out. Or push it in.
On the round buoy?
Yeah, on your base shape. On the base shape of the round buoy if you modified that. Yeah, I guess you just make it a tall buoy, yeah. That would be a pretty fast way to make some rocks.
Yeah.
Like if you're making big rock structures, that would really make it fast.
The painted texture I use though doesn't work very well for big rocks because it stretches weirdly.
Yeah, and I guess
you're better off using the realistic one.
I guess right now this what we're looking at is your library of textures and rock types.
So if I just turn this into a mesh real quick, so I can change the texture. So it resets to the same as the thing.
Yeah.
And then I can do this to turn it into the texture.
It's gonna take a bit, I guess.
So it's big right now, because textures scale weirdly. And then you can just play with the scale here.
Scale it down and then... There we go, that looks a lot more like a big rock.
Yeah, this has a bit of moss on it as well.
That looks really good.
And of course, if we grab the plain one in the model, so that's called Rockwall, comes with the same base shape. And here it's just, you can't really see it well, but there's a square in here, as you can see.
Yeah.
You can just extrude that, scale it, extrude. There.
And just make a big rock wall.
Yeah. If you work with bigger shapes and more complex shapes, you're not gonna have these holes in there.
Yeah.
This one that we had to use the tutorial for, sadly.
Yeah, the little poly one. I was about to hit there myself.
Yeah. Mine's a bit different than his. Like, shape is similar, but it's not the same.
Yeah, you also put in the atarangi logo. It's not that well, but...
I mean, it's meant to look like somebody tried to carve it into a rock. That's not too easy, my dude.
I mean, there's professionals who can do it, but...
Yeah, of course.
If we tried it IRL, it probably wouldn't be...
It would look something like this. Also here I have the like carved in details turned into texture to save on performance.
To save on performance, yeah. So this is what you would do in like a...
Yeah.
If,
You would do the same with the metaballs one. Let me get some metaballs.
so like lowering like your detail to texture would be something you would do for a game.
Yeah.
If you're not going too high detail.
So
or...
the metaballs melt together like this.
Oh, nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then you can like scale them on
That's pretty meta though.
like that.
Mark would
And
like
you
to know
just
your location.
Convert them into a mesh. You're gonna see this mesh. It's not actually too high poly. Metaballs can end up pretty high poly, and as you see, the lines are kind of weird, so you're gonna wanna fix the polygons by making a low poly version.
Yeah.
But first, if we grab our textures. So here's the complicated texture.
And these are then textures by the 3D bump map or...
Yeah. You're not gonna see it right now, because I'm in Eevee. But this is what this texture looks like. You can see it's very detailed if you zoom in.
Yeah.
But if we change our rendering to cycles, now you can see there's... So you could also convert all of that bump into a bump map and use that in Eevee instead of using it in cycles.
Yeah.
So cycles, to be fair, is gonna look better usually. But if you're making an animation and you don't own a render farm, like you're not gonna be rendering in cycles.
And we don't own a render farm yet, so...
Yet. I think that covers all of the rocks. Let us know any questions you've got in the comments.
Well, we haven't gone over photo scanning.
Yeah, but I haven't done photo scanning.
Klaus, do photo scanning.
I'm too lazy.
Buy like 10 hard drives to do photo scanning.
Yeah, so all of... Very important, remember with your textures. Even if you follow the tutorial, you can change it. You don't have to stay true to the tutorial. You can make whatever you want. There we go, now it's a desert rock.
Desert rocks.
You can even change like settings in the shapes and stuff. Turn down the detail, make it into a cartoon rock like this.
Yeah, depending on what project you're working
Turn
on.
the detail up way high and make it way too detailed and kill your computer.
It all depends on the project you're working on, the art style you're going for.
If you're wondering, by the way, it's if a texture is connecting into this place here in the displacement, that's gonna work only in cycles. The way you run that in Eevee is by going to your settings here, add a displacement modifier. I don't immediately see it.
Probably gonna be, yeah, it's in deform, it's the fourth option in deform.
Thanks. There, and you just make your displacement texture from somewhere and then add it here, and then it's gonna do it in Eevee.
Yeah, you seem to have been very busy with rocks.
It's gonna be a bit before the next one of these, as usual. It's gonna be some other types of videos in between. And when we get back, we're gonna be covering plants here. As you can see, I've been working on that. Let us know what you would like to see in some of these videos, and we'll see you next time. Iflaxes! Yeah. There. Error.